So I want to welcome everyone to this event, the Rise Up. It's our event today in the European Mental Health Week. And my name is Inês, and I'll be co-hosting this event with Nick Morgan that you just saw. I hope everyone is well, and let's start. So just to introduce myself a bit, so you guys know who's talking. I am 22 years old, and I'm an activist and an artist. And I have a profound passion in advocating and bringing awareness around mental health. And I first came in contact with Euro Youth mental health through an interview on a podcast called Hydrate Club, because I was talking about mental health and my struggles during high school. And Charlotte, the host of that podcast, introduced me to Euro Youth mental health. And I've been following the organization's journey, and I came in contact with Nick when the opportunity to interview board members and trustees came around, and that's how I'm here. And I've been enjoying this experience very much, and I can't wait for you all to meet our trustees. I think it's going to be exciting. I just want to remind everyone that this is being live streaming on Facebook. So if your camera is on, your face may show. But if you're okay with it, we highly encourage you to have your camera on, because you like to see each other's faces. And when people are speaking, we will be pinning them anyway, so you won't be shown then. If you are in Zoom, you can choose to see the live transcript to help with accessibility if you'd like. So click on the button below. And we highly encourage everyone to introduce themselves in the chat, so we can connect a bit. And today is a session of two halves, so we will have a break in the middle. The first half, Director Nick will introduce the fundamentals of the 3-year strategy in Raise Up. The second half, we'll be having a panel chat, and we will introduce our new and first ever board of trustees. And of course, at the end, we will also leave some time for you in the Zoom room only to ask some questions. If watching on Facebook, please do leave comments and thoughts, and we will try to get back to you after the event. And I will now hand it over to Nick to go over some safety guidelines for the day, and then introduce our Raise Up strategy. Go ahead, Nick.
Thank you very much, Inês. It's what a pleasure to be here today in European Mental Health Week, launching our Rise Up strategy, Raise Up strategy, I should say, and introducing some of our first ever trustee board members, which is really exciting. And Inês has had the pleasure and the responsibility of meeting and interviewing them with some of our other volunteers. I was going to do a full introduction thing, but as we're and some other bits, but as we are a bit behind on time, all I will say is just to look after yourselves through this session. Be aware that there might be some stories, some conversations that cover sensitive topics, mental health being the difficult and complex conversation that sometimes needs to happen. I do encourage you in Zoom to use the chat and to share, and have conversations, put in questions whilst I'm talking and whilst other people are talking, and we'll refer back to them at the Q&A. There are 2 Q&A parts today, one of which will be at the end of my presentation of the Raise Up strategy. I should really get that right. As well as a Q&A for the trustees. Not all of whom can join today, but we do have videos from those who can't join. But we do have 2 of the trustees who will be being interviewed and chatted to later. So yeah, thank you very much. As mentioned, this is now live on Facebook. Please, if you are sharing anything today, you're welcome to share the link, share a video selfie. Please use the hashtag #RaiseUp to promote our strategy and our work for the next 3 years. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into our presentation. It is a PowerPoint, hopefully a jazzy one, of looking at what we're hoping to achieve over the next 3 years, a bit about our background, a bit about what we do, and what we're hoping to do, more importantly, for the next 3 years. So please bear with me, and don't forget, please feel free to have conversations in Zoom, on Facebook, comments about what you are seeing and hearing whilst I'm doing that. So raise up. So these are the elements that we're going to be going through today. Going to look at our stories, some thank yous, what we've achieved so far, our vision and mission, aims and objectives, our team, our experience, service, and what we're doing in the future, and how, more importantly, how you can get involved. There's a call to action at the end of this. So please listen out for that. So just some background, really. It's in the third person so that when we publish this, it makes sense. So I'm going to be speaking. The brainchild of Nick Morgan, that's me. After I conducted a master's thesis, comparing mental health services from Croatia and the UK, did a bit of a short mapping exercise across Europe and recognized that there was no youth-specific representation of mental health issues across Europe. And just the context, there are lots of other organizations. There are European-wide environment organizations, general youth organizations, youth employment organizations, but there was nothing around mental health. So it was initially a Twitter page sharing best practices around youth mental health across Europe. And then in 2017, we formally founded as a community interest company in the UK with myself and Irina Buriana, who was former co-director, has now moved on purely because of capacity, but is still very much supporting us in the background and kind of following our work. 2019, we also became a private limited e-company in Estonia. This is something that we have set up so that given Brexit, we can in future apply for EU bids and tenders to fund the work that we are looking to do. We are Europe's only youth-focused, Europe-wide mental health NGO. We have been entirely run by volunteers. We still are. We're run by young people, for young people. And this year we have recruited our first ever trustee board ready for our 3-year strategy. So we're looking forward to that, obviously, later on when Ines will be interviewing them. Before I get going, I'd like to do a huge thank you to some of the incredible volunteers and organizations that have helped over the last 5 years. There's a quote there from one of our activists who has since finished kind of volunteering and doing activism work with us, talking about thanking us for giving them the space and the platform to do this work, as it's something they wanted to talk about but never had the chance, which kind of sums up a lot of what we want to do on a European platform. I'm not going to name all these people. We are going to do individual kind of shout outs on social media over the next month. But these are some incredibly important. Oh, you know what? I am going to name them. There's Milos, Irina, Joanna, Taco, Inga, Alejandra, Anna Kay, Chrissy, Liziane, Emmy, Neves, Johnny, Anna L, Carmen, Micah, Paulina, Olga, Nikki, Pauline, Barbara, Marlene, Grace, Perry, Thomas, Zdechowski, who's an MEP, as well as Maria Walsh, also an MEP, who've been huge advocates of our work. Tomek and organizations Treat Me, Gamayan, and Mental Health Europe have been huge supporters and helpers of our work. I want to bring special attention to Perry, who is a soft toy platypus that at an event in Strasbourg last year became our official mascot and has their very own Instagram page, which you can follow. The idea being is that Perry will get a different adopted parent every time we meet up in person and travel Europe in doing so. So what we've achieved so far in 5 years, so obviously we've formed to become a recognised non-profit advocating and championing for young people and mental health across Europe. We've delivered at 3 European youth events. These are 4 yearly events, engaging with approximately 300 young people over those events alone. Delivered a study week with the European Network for Independent Living and Council of Europe on mental health as a disability issue. You can find a report of that on our blog. You can also look out for a new study week we'll be doing in November with Young Voices of Refugees Europe on refugees and mental health. We've recruited, trained and worked with approximately 25 young volunteers from across Europe. We've ensured young people's voices are firmly established in the World Health Organization's European work on mental health during and post COVID-19. One of our fantastic young activists, Chrissy, spoke in person at an event in Athens last year, sharing her lived experience and kind of hopes for the future of mental health on a European platform. Successfully gained our first commission pieces paid of work. So I mentioned that we're volunteers, myself included, but we have started gaining some specific paid commissioned pieces of work, which obviously pay for some of our time, but also is an element of overheads that goes in to help keeping Youth mental health, social media and communication and kind of world ticking over. Other stuff, we've done so many things, it was really hard to try and fit into one slide. And so I put that there to make me see if I can think. I think not only these are some of the bigger pieces of work that we've done, but some of the other things that we've done kind of as part of this work is just by working with our volunteers. We have provided an unintentional space of peer support, camaraderie and community amongst our volunteers, that we've formed social close bonds, especially over COVID-19. Last year, we all watched quite a lot of us watched Eurovision online together, which I know is very apt because that's also this Saturday, become one of our favorite kind of social events. But we're hoping to do more in-person things soon, because we do have this really strong companionship of each other and wanting to do this work. So how we have and continue to work with young people. So as mentioned earlier, one of the key things about our work is that we work with young people, for young people. So we have our volunteers who work on a lot of our operational tasks. So they work on the behind the scenes things. This group also contributes their lived experience to our ideas. So everything that we have output, whether it's a piece of project work, our social media, has been developed by young people and has been thought about using the context of their own mental health lived experience. Sometimes they share it, sometimes they don't feel they need to, but the important thing is that everyone is comfortable to use that as a piece of skill that they have, as something they can contribute, as well as their professional experiences, whether that be in research or in comms or in policy and so on. Our young activists, so these are a bigger dedicated network of young people from across Europe, currently about 80 young people from across Europe who engage in various events and focus groups and other opportunities, which we're hoping to grow as this strategy kicks off this week. EYMH is came from that network. There's going to be slight changes made to help with development and improve our meaningful kind of co-production and participatory work that we do with young people going forward. And we're looking forward to engaging people more like that. And then, of course, there's our public stakeholders. This is where other young people, young professionals and professional advocates of young people who have worked with us to share their input, such as some of the organizations we mentioned earlier on. And of course, other professionals, some of whom are in this room today, some of whom might be on Facebook, who work with young people and want to know how they can help and what they can learn to help engage young people more across their work. So this is our 3-year timeline for our strategy. Just jumping straight into a timeline here. We've been doing interviews, conversations, focus groups, workshops with our activists, the public and our volunteers for the last 6 months, really trying to hone in on what some of our key priorities should be. Getting a strategy was the initial key priority, and so we've started to work that up. And there's a quote on the left from one of the young people when looking at a theory of change, thinking about what the problem is, And I felt this one sums it up really nicely, that not enough young people feel empowered enough to talk about their mental health, and this increases likelihood of negative impact of mental illness. And what really I liked about that was that it recognized that we all sometimes struggle with our mental health, sometimes to a clinical level where we need other intervention, just like when you break your leg or you have a serious physical ailment that you need a doctor to help with. Mental health is no different. But you can actually work with that. There are positive ways to live those experiences and to ensure that young people live happy and healthy futures. So this is our proposed 3-year timeline. I'd like to point out that it's what I've called a live-in strategy. There will obviously be some core things that we will be focusing on, but as if anything of the last few years has shown us, is that nothing is set in stone. So we're recognizing that this should be how this is a good way to work, that we'll do what we can to get to these aims. However, things might happen. We have the war in Ukraine, we have COVID-19, and of course we have our own, as a volunteer organization currently, we have our own things going on in our lives, and illnesses and life circumstances that may change and differ throughout the next 3 years, and we need to be adaptive and open to those things happening. So year 1, we're establishing our trustee board and form as a charity in the UK. The trustee board is formally established, although we now need to do inductions with them. And setting up as a charity in the UK, what this will mean is we will be an official kind of NGO and be open to far more income, if I'm honest, and funding opportunities. So this is a big step for us as an organization. We want to create a concrete infrastructure for internal staff and young volunteers, establish and formalize a specific youth advisory board, ideally with a young person from every country in Europe, which we are aware is a huge ambition. And the idea is that we'll do an initial recruitment, get it going, and realize what countries do we not have people from. We will then proactively go out to try and get young people from those countries involved in our work. We will complete and publish the full strategy details in public as well. So that is just being fine-tuned, if you will, and will be published so that members of the public can read, comment, and get involved if you'd like, or offer to help in any of those elements. Year 2, we're hoping to gain, by becoming a charity, we hope to be able to gain some core funding that will help maybe get some operational staff to help coordinate volunteers and really help drive the strategy forward. We hope to have developed and start to trial a peer support model. As one of the problems there, and the community I referred to earlier, something we've noticed is that obviously, well, goes without saying, I think, is that mental health is understood and seen differently across Europe with all our cultures and languages. And so we want to create a European-wide space for young people to come feel comfortable sharing their stories, maybe some of their difficulties, but also being able to identify and realize that they're not alone. This seems to be something that our volunteer group itself has talked a lot about, all coming together and just immediately recognizing that we're all open to talking about mental health isn't something that is the case everywhere across Europe. Alongside getting the core funding, we want to develop a core fundraising strategy to enable us to have more sustainability. Also want to initiate a rebranding exercise. I will openly admit that our branding logo was something that was just made on PowerPoint back in 2017-16. And this is the perfect time, we think, I've always wanted to do this, to be honest, is to get young people to get involved, design, come up with new logo ideas. Potentially, perhaps they like this and it ends up being something similar to that. But yeah, that's something we'd like to start. And also to grow the trustee board. We currently have 4 members. This is just to get us going. So we've got a chair, a treasurer, and a secretary, as well as an honorary officer. And we hope to get more honorary officers from across Europe. I am looking specifically for young trustee board members as well. And then lastly, year 3, we hope to have engaged and worked with at least 600 young people by the end of year 3, which is a big ask. But I given the way the last few years have gone, we are getting a lot of inquiries, and so I don't think that's, I feel we could do more, but I'm being modest. And also like to establish an official membership offer to engage all stakeholders, both young and professional. We have got a membership network, which we're going to ask you to join later today as a call to action. But we hope to develop something more of a formalized offer, which could also be used as a way of getting some funding as well. But that is to be discussed as we go forward. So our vision, a Europe in which young people's voices raise up to be heard and acted on to ensure young people have happy and healthy futures. We act in order to raise up the voices of young people to promote mental health, to support those impacted by mental ill health across Europe, and that's our mission. Just want to state now, we are very much about young people co-production, participation, youth engagement, leading the conversation about practices and policy and interventions and support and education around mental health and young people across Europe. Recently, I was part of a World Health Organization meeting, as well as the members of European Parliament interest group, where I banged the drum that there aren't any young people, well, there were only 1 or 2 people who were there representing kind of young people. One of the groups I was in was actually a specific young people's group. So, you know, we're really trying to push that agenda forward across Europe, which we hope to be able to then offer support to nationalities, to countries and local communities on how to do that as well, and how to work that process around mental health and its sensitivities. So this, yeah, who we aim to be. So we aim to have a core team of volunteers and professionals and lived experience with a desire to learn. A network of young people from across Europe with lived mental health experience, willing to use this knowledge to co-produce research, policies and practice across Europe. We want to be a pool of youth participation and co-production experts trained in mental health support to enable us to engage young people in a safe, supportive and meaningful way. And then develop our membership group of stakeholders in youth mental health. Our services, these are the services, we have delivered some of these already. We're going to formalize some of these offers more. So we offer professional and expert co-production and participatory engagement with young people on mental health issues. There's a lot of co-production based and participatory work on young people in general. And from my experience and our experience working with young people, having conversations about quite difficult things sometimes, mental health deserves a tailored and kind of adaptable method on how to involve young people in these sorts of projects. Training, and we've started delivering some, we have delivered some trainings over the last few years. So some of our training offers are looking at training young people to empower them to be able to feel comfortable using their lived experience around mental health to make positive change and enter into co-production opportunities, feeling comfortable using that lived experience. You know, it's a kit, so there's an element of promotion, removing a bit of the stigma, and then giving young people the confidence and the tools to use that kind of those experiences for positive change. We'd also like to train kind of those who engage with young people, such as youth workers, police, teachers, parents. And these are potentially in the way of a mass online course or something of that nature. From my experience and on paper, youth workers I've met across Europe, mental health is a topic that has not been given any attention for youth workers, for example, to be trained in and be more aware of. We'd like to offer youth expertise and advocacy for projects, research, events, etc., which we have been doing the last few years. And we hope to, I guess, grow this area of work where we are commissioned by research teams, by Horizon Europe bids, and so on, to kind of lead on young people's input and involvement in pieces of work. A good example of this was a piece of work we did with Cork and the Anna Freud Centre, where we got funding from the Wellcome Trust, and we did an international, outside of Europe, international piece of work where we had 2 peer researchers, as well as then a youth advisory board. It's a good piece of practice. And lastly, to consultants on creating mentally mental healthy environments for kind of international projects. So as mentioned earlier, there's lots of huge international youth organizations that we believe we could offer a lot of expert insight into how their organizations could do work or campaigns or specific pieces of research that look at young people and mental health. This is just a lovely kind of, I can't remember the word, compilation of photos of some of the things that we've been doing over the last few years that I've put together. There's various things there, quite a few in-person events are from the European youth events over the last 5 years, and as well as online events and other things of that nature. So, sorry everyone. That should be on silent. That should be on silent. So our call to action. So thank you so much for listening today as we come to an end. And we're keen to give you all a call of action to take away with you. And in fact, we've got 3. You can pick one and do that. Look. So ultimately, sign up to our network. I'll be putting links in the chat later for you to be able to do that quickly. And through that network, you'll be updated on more trainings and formal actions that are taking place in the organization and how you could potentially get involved, or young people that you work with. Use hashtag #RaiseUp when sharing your or young people's voices about mental health. So if you're ever doing a story or a piece of work around mental health and young people, please use the hashtag #RaiseUp, and we can hopefully use that for the next 3 years and get a lot of content online, and we can track that and we'd share it, and we'd want to promote all the good work that's going on in other organizations as well. And lastly, get in touch if you think that you could do with being upskilled on youth mental health and co-production, whether that's you, your organization, people that you work with. We can be flexible around kind of timings and places. Obviously, we can do a lot of things online, but we do have people and experts across Europe who can help facilitate particular pieces of work that we can do with you. So yeah, there's our contact details, info@eymh.org, website's www.eymh.org, and we are on all the below social medias. Our TikTok page especially is a new one, and we're hoping to get a TikTok lead volunteer for that soon, as I have no idea what I'm doing. But yeah, of course, we have an Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook page. This will be reposted on YouTube later next week. So if you wanted to rewatch it, please do go there. So thank you very much for listening to this today and for coming today. We've got a few minutes, I'm just checking the time, a few minutes for Q&A, and then we'll have a short break. And then after that, there will be the interview with our new trustees, or meet the trustees interview, with, again, your opportunity for Q&A after that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I'm going to stay spotlighted and see if there's any questions. First off, I'm going to look at the chat, unless you've seen anything, Ines, if you've seen anything in the chat that you'd like me to answer.
No, there are some people just introducing themselves, just that, yeah.
Cool. So does anyone have any questions about any of that work? It's all a bit broad and big picture, so it might be like, oh, I'm taking it all in. It's very ambitious, I think, but that's something I've never been sure of. But are there any questions about any of that strategy at the moment? And of course, if you're watching this on Facebook, we will look to get back to you after the event if you have put a question on there. Well, if there are no, oh, Julian.
Thank you, Nick. I mean, it's not really a question, but I just want to say, you know, it's sounding really, really exciting. I think it's really clear. Yeah, I think it's really important. And just looking back at all the work that all of you have been doing is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and the work with the informing the World Health Organization, through to the specific kind of projects that you were talking through to having this kind of really rich, supportive community of volunteers. Yeah, I just thought it sounded really incredible. So yeah, that was all I wanted to say, really.
Thanks, Julian. Yeah, it's been exciting to do, come up with these sorts of like target goals and things, but it is a big ambition, but I think we're at a really good point now. And like you say, going back over the last 5 years, trying to figure out all the things that we did, really did kind of highlight for me the incredible work that we've done. And I'm really excited to have a trustee board to work with as well going forward, and spread the responsibility, if I'm being honest. Brilliant. Thank you, Julian. Any other questions? I'm keeping an eye on the chat. You don't have to say it verbally if you don't wish. Okay, so let's take I was going to say a 5-minute break, but I think I'm ahead of time. So we're going to take a 10-minute break. Here we are, ahead of time. Yeah, 10-minute break. And then we'll be, so if we come back at 10:30 BST, 11:30 CET, I'll put up a slide to share on Facebook just to let people know that we'll be back in a bit, and we'll see you back here at 10/11:30. Feel free to turn your cameras and mute yourselves in the meantime.
Okay, so welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed the break. Hope everyone is doing well. And now we're going to meet our new trustees. So the honorary officer, treasurer, secretary, and chair. I just want to tell you that some of the trustees were not able to make it today, but they have sent a short video to say hello. But first, we'll meet those in the room. So I would love to ask the trustees in the room. We can start with you, Julian, to introduce themselves a bit. So go ahead, Julian. Name, where you're from, how you found about our organization. And I want to remind everyone that Nick will be managing the chat. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead.
Thank you, Ines. Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted to be taking this opportunity to be a new trustee. So yeah, it's a real pleasure and a privilege. So my name's Julian. I'm based in London in the UK. So my kind of day job is I'm a researcher. So I'm based at a children's mental health charity in a university. And the work that I do is all about empowering young people and families to have an active role in their mental health, but also their kind of mental health support and the systems around them. And I also have a particular focus on social inequalities. So yeah, from that perspective, the work of the Euro Youth Mental Health is a really ideal fit. I do lots of work in my research about involving young people, not just as participants in the study, but also as peer researchers, co-researchers, and informing how we're doing the research. So again, that's a really nice fit as well. But I think probably the main reason I was kind of so interested in Euro Youth Mental Health was probably more from my kind of own personal and lived experiences. So I have my own kind of ongoing, long-standing experiences of mental health difficulties and kind of traumatic events. And I mean, yes, whilst some of these were when I was younger, I think the more sort of formally recognised ones were when I've been kind of older and as an adult. And I just always think, it's so challenging to go through these as an adult. And it just makes me think about, how, given the power differences, all sorts of other inequalities, the kind of breadth of different experiences young people will be having across Europe. I just think how crucial something like Euro Youth Mental Health is to really help young people have a voice through these really challenging experiences that they're going through at a time when there's all sorts of other changes, other challenges, and yeah, a real kind of overall, unfortunately, a lack of young people's voices being recognised. So I think, something like Euro Youth Mental Health is crucially important. And I suppose the way I came about learning about Euro Youth Mental Health, I have to be honest, it was through my work with Nick. So I work with Nick in my day job as well. So that was how I kind of first heard about Euro Youth Mental Health. But then I was kind of involved more and more in various ways in kind of different projects. And just the more I saw, the more I learned, the more I was involved. Yeah, I was just completely blown away. Yeah, it's just, yeah, as I was saying earlier, I think it's such important work. And yeah, I think it's such a great opportunity to bring together people across Europe so that we can be learning from each other, seeing, what's working well in one area, if that can be if that can work well somewhere else, but also, yeah, just having that real kind of rich diversity in experiences.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Julian. I'm very excited for you to have you as a trustee as well. What's your favorite project that you have knowledge of that Europe mental health was involved in?
So I'd probably have to say, although I was involved in this project, so I feel a bit, yeah, I feel a bit, hopefully I'm not blowing my own trumpet too much, but it was the project Nick was referring to earlier. So this was a study with 8 kind of different international countries, and we were doing focus groups with young people across these different countries. And this was right when we were in the kind of the middle of the first sort of lockdown periods. So being able to connect with so many different young people across the world at that time, when we were so limited in our connections, was really powerful. But no, it was just fantastic. I mean, we had 2 excellent peer researchers from Euro Youth Mental Health. So they were Milos and Inga, and yeah, it was just yeah, they were just kind of working alongside us as part of the research team, and yeah, it was just, yeah, I mean, what I find when kind of doing this kind of work with peer researchers or with young people, it just feels like you're working with another sort of member of the team. There doesn't really feel like much of a difference, and that was very true in this case. But I thought what was really nice was we were able to have peer roles in each of the different countries as well. So this was so helpful in making sure, you know, we're asking the correct questions, not only in a way that kind of makes sense from a sort of language perspective, but also based on, you know, things that are available in the community, or kind of key things that might be kind of differently important in different areas. So yeah, I've just seen how much it kind of really sort of adds to the project. So yeah, I think that was probably my favorite one so far.
Okay, awesome. Now I would love to bring Sarah into the conversation, another of our trustees. So Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello. Firstly, apologies, I've got a horrible cold, so I'm all bleh. But it's very nice to see you all and meet you all this morning. So yeah, so my name's Sarah. I'm taking on the role as treasurer. So that means I get to look after all the money reporting, all the kind of governance and policies and processes and all those boring nerdy bits that I absolutely love and everybody else hates. So I'm very excited to take that on. I'm based in London as well, in England, and I found out about Euro Youth Mental Health again through Nick. Nick is an old friend of mine. We've known each other for a long time now, in a personal capacity, and it's been really exciting and empowering to see the organisation growing over the last 5 years. So yeah, it's really exciting for me to actually be involved and officially now, and help to take things forward. So I am an accountant day to day. That is my job. I work pretty much solely in the charitable sector, and I've worked for a huge range of charities, from charities that look after people with learning disabilities, to charities that look after migrants and provide services for them, to play groups, to some really fancy Royal Medical Colleges. It's very official, a huge range of charities. So I'm hoping I can bring that experience to this organisation and help push it forward.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So we will get back to talking with you. And Julian, I would just love to introduce the other trustee members through their short videos that they made.
Hello everyone, my name is Filipa. I am very sorry I couldn't meet you in real time for this meeting. Unfortunately, I will be working at the time of the meeting. So I'm preparing this brief video to present myself so that you can get to know a little bit about me, even if we can speak in real time. I'm Filipa. I'm from Porto in Portugal, which is where I am right now. It's very nice weather. Actually, my house has some isolation problems and it gets very warm in the summer and very cold in the winter. And at this moment, I'm wearing a t-shirt and I'm I'm struggling. So yes, I am in Portugal right now. I live here. I have studied clinical and health psychology. I've recently completed my master's here in Porto. And regarding my experience in the mental health field, well, I've done an internship where I've delivered psychological intervention to children, young people, and also parents. I have also worked in patient and public involvement, which is a methodology of research that implies inviting people from the public that are not part of the academy to be part of research teams and conduct research processes. So actually, my interest in the involvement of the people actually affected by the knowledge that's produced in research, that interest is very connected to my interest in joining the Euro Youth Mental Health as a trustee secretary. So one of the main reasons that captivated me to join this organization was the fact that it aims to involve young people in generating knowledge and in the promotion of youth mental health. So the fact that these actions of mental health promotion and knowledge production are not being done exclusively by adults and mental health experts, but done in partnership with young people, for me, this is the type of knowledge production I believe in. The people that actually have lived experience in what is being discussed should have the right to have a voice in those discussions. And that was that was the main reason that made me want to join the Euro Youth Mental Health. Believing that this is an organization that aims to actually bridge the gap between mental health specialists and adults and young people, and also to give young people a voice. So also, I share with you what I do to look after my mental health. So I believe that when I feel like I'm having a problem, that my mental health is a bit fragile, for me, this is very connected to my self-esteem or self-concept. Sometimes when my mental health is on the low side, for me, I experience it as doubting myself, feeling like I'm failing, like I'm not competent enough. And so when I feel like this, I just reach out for the people that make me feel the most like myself. So I try to get surrounded by my good friends, the people that are a safe harbor for me, my friends and family. And I try to spend as much time as I can with them And I try to avoid spaces where places, and situations that make me feel more unsure about myself, that are not very grounding for me. So this is one thing I do. Each time I feel my mental health is on the low side, I text a friend when I say, do you want to hang out? Just hang out, let's exist together for a bit. And that makes me feel way better. It's transforming, actually, to spend time with people that are important for me and safe for me. And well, that's it for my presentation. Thank you for letting me present myself through this video. I can't wait to meet you all in the next time, in synchronous time. And I'm very excited and very happy about being part of Euro Youth Mental Health, and I can't wait to start working with all of you. Thank you for listening to me, and wish to see you soon. Hope you all stay very well. Bye.
Hello everyone, my name is Esperança. I'm from Portugal and I live in a beautiful city called Viana do Castelo. I chose to study psychology and today I'm a junior psychologist and a researcher at the University of Porto. As many of you already experienced at some point, sometimes you just feel overwhelmed with work, with life in general. It's the work for me. So to take care of my mental health, whenever I start feeling overwhelmed, I take a good look around me. I try to understand what I can and can't control. I find some days in my agenda and just stop and rest. Joining the Hero Youth Mental Health, it's a challenge that I'm so happy to take. I believe in the core elements of this organization, and together I know that we can do so much.
So that was Esperança and Philippa, and I'll hand over back to yourself, Ines, to continue the conversation with Julian and Sarah in the room.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. As Nick said, yeah, it was not intentional at all to have just UK and Portugal here. It was just the people that we met and we connected with, and we think that they are beautiful people. So back to the live conversation with Julian and Sarah. I want to remind everyone that Nick is monitoring the chat, so if you have questions, go ahead. And I want to remember, Julian and Sarah, you share as much as you'd like. Don't feel pressure at all. And let's start with your experience with working with young people. What you love about it, how do you feel about it, things like that.
Certainly. Sorry, I've had a slight mind blank on the question. What do I like about working with young people?
Yeah.
I can step in if you want, Julian.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I guess from my point of view, to be honest, I've not, other than being a young person at a point in my life, I've not necessarily worked directly with young people, which is something that I'm really looking forward to getting into, to be honest. I live with a lot of young people. I do work with young people in a voluntary capacity, in a community sense. And I feel like it's just going to bring a whole kind of new breath of fresh air and lease of life to my knowledge and my experiences. And I'm really excited to learn from other people and understand more about what's going on in their lives, really. So yeah, for me, it will be quite a new thing. It'll be such a relief to not be working with a board of trustees of old men. So yeah, it will be really exciting and really refreshing, I think, from my point of view.
Thank you for helping me out there. Yeah, so I guess I was just thinking about, I work with young people, kind of like I was talking about before, as sort of participants in research studies, but also as experts by experience in informing how we do the research. And I guess the thing that I was slightly distracted by was just thinking back to myself when I was a young person, and just how I wouldn't have been able to do the fantastic work that the young people I work with do. I mean, they just, as I said earlier, it's just like working with anyone else. It's so helpful, because if there's something that isn't thought through, if there's something wrong, if there's something that's that's a bit iffy, they just are so quick to helpfully point it out and help to come up with solutions for it. I think the ideas, the considerations, hearing from the diverse views. I mean, one example, we're doing a project that was specifically about young women's mental health, and straight away they were saying we need an inclusive definition of young women, and that's crucially important. And that has, we have just embedded that throughout all of the project. So yeah, I think also the different perspective and learning things that I don't know. I think these are some of the other things that I enjoy about working with young people.
Thank you so much for that, Julia and Sarah. I would love to hear about your experiences still with young people. What do you like the most when they share about their lived experience? Because we are young, but I believe that every experience has value. And I would love for you to share a story where you thought that lived experience was really important in advocating and awareness around mental health.
I mean, I think every experience is important in advocating for mental health. I think every experience is unique, but I think also, as unique as they are, I think sadly there are lots of commonalities across experiences, whether it's disadvantage, discrimination, not being believed when you're talking about mental health difficulties, which we continue to sadly hear a lot from young people. But also just the insight, it always really surprises me. I have never been so insightful about my own experiences, but just the insight I just find incredible. But I think the thing that I enjoy most, or each time it just really surprises me, is just how courageous and how brave young people are. I mean, these are obviously difficult experiences, and people are so brave to be talking about them, sharing them, and doing so in such an accessible way, but also a way that really you can kind of put yourself in their shoes. And I think for me, that's really sort of changed what I do. And, working in this area, there was, despite working in mental health, there's still a lot of stigma about, in a work capacity, talking about your own mental health difficulties or experiences. But no, I'm so incredibly grateful to working with young people and seeing that bravery, because that's really changed what I do and my approach. And I'm kind of much more open about my experiences. And yeah, I simply wouldn't have had the courage to do that without kind of learning from other young people. So yeah, I don't think this quite answers the question, But yeah, I think this is,
I
yeah,
think
something.
that was a beautiful answer.
Oh, thank you, that's very kind.
I would 100% agree with what Julian said as well. It's incredible to see how young people are taking their own health and future in their own hands, and being so open and getting rid of all that stigma. Like, it's completely different from when I was 17, 18 years old. And one thing I noticed a couple of summers ago during kind of some protests, big protest march in London, is how strong and powerful young people are. Like, it was young people that were leading the protests and being very vocal about what they needed, what they wanted, and it was absolutely incredible. So yeah, I agree 100% with what Julian said as well.
Thank you so much. Do you want to share something about your youth and how it came about, you wanting to get involved in mental health and bringing awareness and working with such organizations?
Maybe, yeah. Bit of a sensitive subject, but I had a friend who did take his own life at the age of, I think he was 20 at the time. So this was a little while ago now, getting on a bit, but back then no one talked about it. There was no talk about how taking antidepressants and then stopping them could completely mess with your head. There was no talk of kind of real therapy around things. There was no, even within our friendship group, there was no openness about how he was feeling, etc. And since then, it's kind of always been something that I think about, that everybody always says it, and you have to talk to your friends, you have to do that, but you have to do more than that. You have to kind of really try and build those bridges and build those relationships, so it's easier to then say to your mate, hang on a minute, I'm feeling really bad now, like, I need to do something about it. And yeah, so I guess over the last few years, just learning more about different people's experiences, trying to open up to other people, and learning more about my own experiences as well, has made me realize that, yeah, mental health and looking after your mental health is incredibly important. So yeah, being involved in something like this is really excellent for me. Sorry, I went on a bit of a ramble then. Hope that made some sense.
Thank you so much for sharing such a personal experience, Sarah. It is really important to talk about things like this. And Euro Mental Health did a project about suicides, and Nick just posted some helplines on the chat for everyone. And yeah, Julian, I would love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Sarah. I guess for me, so I experienced kind of quite a lot of homophobic bullying sort of throughout my secondary or sort of high school time. And yeah, I think this definitely had a real, I mean, it was every time I opened my mouth, there was, yeah, I experienced it. So yeah, I think this definitely had a real impact on me, both in terms of how I did in school, you know, my mental health. I was definitely, yeah, had depression. And I didn't talk about it with anyone. So I think, you know, and I guess my attitude was, it'll be fine. I just have to get to the end of school and get out of school. And obviously that's many years. You're in school for quite a number of years. So I guess what I am really taking from this, and why I'm so passionate about Euro Youth Mental Health, is that I don't want, you know, this isn't how it should be. I think people should be talking about this, talking about their mental health, what are the difficulties, and getting the most out of whatever phase of life they're in. And it shouldn't be that you're, you know, just trying to kind of get through a period of time, particularly when you're young. And that can have quite a, you know, it's obviously important to kind of have sort of positive experiences. But I guess also from that, I just think about the long-term implications that these things can have. So for me, I mean, it took about 15 years after leaving school to be confident and comfortable talking in group settings like this. So yeah, I think probably for me, that's my kind of takeaway experience in one of the reasons I'm so motivated to work with your youth mental health.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Julian. And it really is, it shouldn't be a matter of surviving. It should be a matter of living in a comfortable way and in a society that accepts you. And those are really powerful stories, both of you. And it's really remarkable for you to grab that experience, that lived experience, and do something with it to help others. So thank you so much for sharing that. You touched a bit on this, on education. How do you feel that education nowadays is related to mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question. I mean, particularly in schools in this country, I mean, there's been a real shift to having more mental health support in schools. So there's been lots of work about, talking about mental health, it being okay to talk about it. And then schools doing teaching around this and providing different types of support. I think that's obviously really positive, and I think, obviously there's a long way to go, but I think I think Sarah was talking about this. I think attitudes have really sort of changed, and I think, we can see sort of stigma changing. I think how much that then translates to effective support for young people, I think we've still got some way to go with this. Yeah, I think there's lots of great work going on and people are working really hard in this area, and this sadly is common across Europe, but the resources for supporting young people's mental health in school, both in kind of schools, community settings, but also specialist services, I mean, it's just not good enough. So I think it creates a bit of an uncomfortable tension, because if we're saying, oh yes, talk about it, it's really good to be talking about it, you should be doing it, and then there's not the good enough support for people who are talking about it, to me that really just kind of rubs salt into the wound. So yeah, and I know this is going to not be news to anyone listening to this. I'm sure people will have experienced this firsthand time and time again. So yeah, I think there's kind of good work going on, but yeah, it's really kind of the tip of the iceberg. And yes, similarly, I think really interested to see what the kind of the landscape of this in education is across Europe.
Thank you so much, Julian. Go ahead, Sarah.
I was just going to say I agree with Julian as well. I know when I was at school, there was literally zero talk of mental health and looking after your own mental health. So yeah, it'd be good to find out more about what's happening nowadays in schools.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I would like to ask you both on what do you think would be an interesting project to bring to schools to maybe better the awareness on mental health and how kids and young people can better their mental health and put their mental health first?
That's a hard question. That's a big question. I'm gonna do an almost politician's answer and say I would ask the young people themselves how they would like to tackle that. But I think one main takeaway that I'd want to get from doing a project like that is to just get people talking, and for people to know that they can talk to their teachers, their peers, their parents, counsellors, nurses, whoever, and say that they're having a tough time, and not be worried about, because sometimes it sounds silly, doesn't it? Like, I suffer from anxiety, and people look at me and go, what do you mean you suffer from anxiety? Because I'm always kind of like, life of the party, but to be able to just say, I'm having a really anxious time here right now, or something like that, I think that's what I'd want to get out of it. How that actually happens, I think, yeah, we'd have to see what people wanted to do themselves, and see how it naturally happened, maybe, almost, as well.
Yeah, I agree, Sarah. And I think, having this, creating this safe space is crucially important. I guess I was thinking about, and yeah, I completely agree. Hearing from the experts, hearing from the young people, is definitely the way to go. But I guess I was just thinking, how much, obviously it's great to have kind of support for the individuals, but it's also, what the wider system is doing. And, we've talked about the mental health support, but I mean, it's also the whole schooling system, and the just enormous education, the enormous pressure that young people are under in the school system, and particularly for young people for whom, there are educational needs, learning needs, neurodiverse needs. They're just so excluded from the existing educational system, and also, for young people for whom other types of careers or professions that aren't in such a kind of academic pathway, how we can be building that into the system. So yeah, I think, I think there's much more support needed for individuals, but I think, taking a kind of long, hard look at the system, I think is also crucially important. How realistic that's going to be to affect that change, I don't think should stop us advocating for it. And what better platform than Youth Mental Health to do so?
Thank you so much. And Sarah, I loved your answer. It wasn't just political, it's the truth. We should be asking how they would feel comfortable handling this subject. Because, like Julian said, they really are the experts. So we have some questions. We have a question from Alejandra that says, what excites you most about being part of this board?
Getting a trip to Portugal. No, only joking. Although that would be great. No, I'm really excited to help the organisation grow more and reach more people, reach more young people, and share the knowledge across Europe, etc. And just, yeah, that's my main thing. Really, I'm just really excited to help the organisation grow and expand and do more good work. Really, simple as that, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, we've just been talking about hearing from the experts, the young people, but similarly, hearing from the experts, the young people in Youth Mental Health, the volunteers. And I guess, what's really great about our role is we're trying to build up, really hear from the experts, and just be a bit of a kind of a reflective space to hear these views, digest them, and just help kind of together think about, as Sarah was saying, how we can just continue to grow the fantastic work. So yeah, I think it's that sort of interaction, reflection, that kind of thing I'm particularly looking forward to.
Thank you so much for that answer. I hope that answered your question, Alejandra. And now I would love to bring Nick into the conversation, because I believe Agnes question, I hope I'm not butchering your name, is for you, Nick. So how do we involve young people in our activities? Like, what are the methods we use?
Yeah, it's quite a large question. Thank you, Agnes. I hope I answered that question okay. I just felt I was best placed to answer it, given kind of been working on that side of things for the last few years. A variety of ways, really. I think you can have all the processes and the adverts and promotion and social media and attract people to follow your pages, you know, and using platforms that young people use. As I mentioned earlier, we've just started a TikTok page, which I have no idea about, but you know, those are the spaces that young people are using, and whether or not we think social media is bad or good, there's a happy middle ground somewhere that we can work with to involve young people. There are formal capacities as well, and processes in place to ensure that when we do involve young people in our work, it's done in a supportive, a safe and a meaningful way. So, you know, there are, we ask them if someone, so for instance, Ines was interested in interviewing the trustees, and there was an interest form for her to fill in, which asked for particular details to kick off the conversation, some of which asked already at the start, what support might you need to engage in this type of work? And, you know, that could be anything from anxiety being a classic one, of maybe not being comfortable being on camera on a Zoom, and we'd be really flexible to ensure that we do everything we can that young people can still engage no matter what. And yeah, I think another thing we do is I can talk till the cows come home, but it's attending European-wide events and conferences and meetings, and raising the profile of our organization and our work. And when we do our work, I found, like today, I feel really comfortable and confident that we've chosen well with our board of trustees, in the sense that, you know, there's already jokes and a humor and a friendliness to the way we're doing things, which is the way in which I want us to work. Don't get me wrong, there are always serious and strict things that need to be done in a workplace, and we're talking, you know, thinking of the CHA and the amount of time she's helped with our accounts unofficially, but you know, there are things that you have to do, but the idea is we want to create a space that all people who do things with us, whether it's as a volunteer on the young advisory board, it's done so respectfully, humorously where relevant and appropriate, and yeah, kind of safely and supportively. Yeah, we reach out to loads of youth organizations. You know, we do a lot of work with European Youth Events, who we're currently in conversations with to partner with us this year for youth mental health. Yeah, for Mental Health Day on the 10th of October, where we're hoping to run our 3rd Youth Mental Health Europe event. And it's just going through those networks are the main ways. I hope that answers that question, Agna. Feel free to get in touch if you'd like to learn more. We can do more, collaborate together. I'm going to take over slightly here. I think just for a bit of a level playing field, I wanted to ask Ines a question, because obviously we asked yourselves, Sarah and Julian, about schools and things, and the current, and obviously you can only reflect on your kind of British-esque experiences. So Ines, yeah, based on, let's use the school question we asked them as an example. You know, what's going on in Portugal then that you can see? Did you have any education about mental health growing up, and if not, is there anything happening now?
Well, there wasn't much education around mental health in my school. It was very limited, and it was mostly not talked about much. You know, I would hear about mental health in the nurse's office, because there was a great woman that was my guardian angel there, that would talk about, and every student that was having trouble with anxiety before a test or anything like that, she would welcome them into the nurse's office and would give them some magical tea. Everyone knew about the tea, and we'd sit down, and sometimes she would give us some paper for us to rip apart just to get the stress out while we drink our tea. And we would talk with each other sometimes, like, hey, I'm gonna have this test, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm gonna have a test as well, because we're so many students that our experiences were bound to cross, so that was the place where I most heard about mental health, but it shouldn't be limited to, we should talk about this in classrooms. But as Sarah touched on the topic of antidepressants, I've been taking medication for a few years now, and it's still a very taboo topic. I never hid the fact that I took medication. But sometimes I would share that with my classmates, and they would not understand, and sometimes they would criticize some aspects, and not because they were mean, it's just because people are not educated on the topic, So I would love for schools to take mental health a bit more seriously. It's not just anxiety. People can have serious problems with anxiety, because everyone feels anxiety, but when it comes to a point where anxiety stops you from doing something, that's where something is wrong. So yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Ines. I'll hand back to you to finish up.
Okay, so I want to remind people that, and I'm sorry, my neighbor's dogs are very excited right now. So I want to remind people our call of action. So to raise up, Nick is going to put some links in the chat. So you can head over to our socials and sign up for our network, with your email. There's some news about it. And please don't ever feel shy in using our hashtag #RiseUp when you're sharing your stories about mental health or young people's voices about mental health. And don't hesitate in getting in touch to be upskilled on youth mental health co-production. So I want to thank everyone that was here. I want to thank Nick for this opportunity. And I want to thank our board members, our trustees, for participating and giving a gist of what they are so excited about working with the organization. Oh, and we are going to share as well some links to help with the war in Ukraine, some resources. And yeah, I think that's about it. I hand it over to you, Nick, if you want to add anything.
No, just to say a huge thank you to yourself, Ines, for absolutely fantastically hosting today. Thank you so much. And Sarah, Julian, and everyone who attended on both Zoom and Facebook. This will be posted on YouTube later next week if you wanted to rewatch or to share with your colleagues, peers, and friends.